when I was walking out of the donut shop, I just had tears in my eyes because I thought there's no way I would get a yes. How many donut moments have I missed in my life just because I thought there's no way I would get it?
Welcome to The Lisa Show, where we take a good look at life. Hey, it's Lisa. As an actress, I've auditioned for things and gotten plenty of rejections. It's never a good feeling to not get the part you auditioned for, especially the ones you really put your time and energy into and you think you're perfect for or would be a huge break or an opportunity for you. It's rough, but it's part of being an actor. They tell you not to take it personally, but I still do. Every audition is about letting people judge you personally. Like your looks, your talent, your voice, your height, and everything. You don't even get paid to audition. Why do I even do this? It's a lot of time. But rejection, big or small, is just a part of life. It happens to all of us, actors and non-actors alike. Now, whether or not rejection wrecks us, stalls us, or benefits us is really all about how we approach it and what we do with it. To help us all turn gutting rejections into growth projections is Jiang. You may know Jia from his best-selling book, Rejection Proof: How I Beat Fear and Became Invincible Through 100 Days of Rejection. Jia knew he had a problem with rejection, so he spent 100 days straight completing a daily rejection challenge on purpose. I get a little queasy just thinking about it. Jia thought it would be good therapy to help him better navigate rejection. And it was. But as you're about to find out, Jiang learned so much more about how to handle hearing no. Getting good at rejection has changed his relationship with strangers, with family, with work, and with failure for the better.
Yeah. So my name is Jiang, and I'm an author, and I'm a speaker, and I help a lot of people overcome their fear of rejection. I grew up in China, and I met Bill Gates. I saw him speak in an event when he was promoting Windows when I was 14-year-old. And at the time, I was like, this sounds great. I wrote a letter to my family that night. I'm going to become the Chinese version of Bill Gates. I want to go to America to do it. So when I was 16, I came to the United States as a cultural exchange student. I went to rural Louisiana. And so that's a little bit of a cultural shock, to say the least.
A little different than China.
Yes, it was a different American dream than I thought. But it was great. I learned a lot about America. I'm still in touch with my host family. But then I was like, this is the start of my dream. It's awesome. Someday someone will write a book about me. And then I went to college. So I picked computer science as my major. And my whole idea was I wanted to replicate the Bill Gates life, So
Yeah. Why not? Sounds great. Sounds like a great life.
Great, yeah.
Well, so tell me when you first encountered rejection on that path and how it affected you.
Yeah, so the first rejection was for me rejecting myself because I have always wanted to be an entrepreneur. But then I chose a path where that's the least rejected by my family, by my friends. I did the same thing that everyone else did. I went to school, I found a job, made money, bought a dog, bought a house, bought a car, went down this kind of a traditional path. And it wasn't until I was 30 and we had a kid on the way that I felt like, man, if I couldn't do this as a single guy, there's no way I'll be an entrepreneur as a father. So my wife, Tracy, encouraged me to quit my job and start my own company. So I started my company, found a team of engineers who were building this mobile app, going down this tech entrepreneur route. And I wanted someone to fund my company. This very well-known investor locally in Austin, Texas, and he showed interest. And I pitched to him, and then I got rejected pretty brutally. And so that night, I was thinking, man, that person knew a lot more about business than I did. If he didn't like my idea, if he didn't like me, that must have meant my idea wasn't good, I wasn't good, so maybe I should quit. And that's where it dawned on me. No one successful at anything would think this way, So that's why I was like, instead of running away from rejection, I need to confront rejection.
So what inspired you to start seeking out rejection, which doesn't seem like what most people would do?
No, it wasn't. And So I was searching online and I Googled how to overcome my fear of rejection. I saw a bunch of articles. Then I saw a website. It's called rejectiontherapy.com. And rejection therapy was this game invented by this Canadian entrepreneur. And his name is Jason Comley. And he's like, if you're afraid of rejection, he gave you 30 cards. And each card will give you a suggestion to get rejected at something on purpose. So instead of running away
I said,
from it,
I need some ideas for how to be rejected. Like 30, poof, I could come up with that before breakfast. Yeah.
yeah, so absolutely. But the thing is, the idea of looking for rejection instead of running away was just
Yeah.
downright funny. And I'm like, I'm gonna do this, but I'm not gonna use these cards. I'm gonna just come up with use my own imagination to get rejected on purpose. And I think that's a key decision in my life. I said, I'm gonna film this and share this with the world. If I do this by myself, I'll quit pretty easily. Rejection is tough, right? But
Yeah,
if
it
I
is.
share this with the world, people hold me accountable. So I started a vlog. It's called 100 Days of Rejection Therapy, where every day I would go out and look for rejection.
I love it. So this is how you decided, okay, this is what I'm going to do. My own 100 days of rejection experiment. I'm going to record it for accountability. Here's my plan. I want to know what some of the most uncomfortable requests that you made were for you personally.
So day one was pretty tough, actually. Day one, my rejection was, I'm going to ask a stranger for $100. And I've never asked money from anyone before, never, and especially not to strangers. So one day I saw a security guard sitting in the lobby of the place I was working at. So I approached him and I said, can I borrow $100 from you? And he just said no. And that's just thank you, sorry, bye. Just kind of a jumble of words and just run. I was so scared. But the thing is, that night I was checking my video. I was like this NFL scout looking at the game film, I mean, see what happened there. And I saw he said no to me, but he wasn't mean. You know, he wasn't like calling the police. He didn't have a pepper spray. He didn't cuss me out. All he did was say no. So
All he said was no.
yeah, but I just ran. Also, he asked me why. He was like, no, why? And I didn't say anything. I couldn't negotiate. I couldn't explain myself because I was so scared. I just ran as fast as I could. So I said, tomorrow, no matter what happens, I'm not going to run. Okay, I'm going to stay engaged and explain myself and have some fun with it. So the next day after like having lunch at a burger joint, I said, can I get a burger refill? And he's like, what do you mean a burger refill? I was like, just like a free drink refill, but with a burger instead. And he said, we don't do burger refill, man. But then I stayed engaged and negotiated. And eventually it was still a no, but I didn't feel as bad anymore. You know, that's
So in the negotiation, you didn't feel as bad had you run away.
exactly.
Why do you think that is?
When you're running, you are not changing anyone's mind, right? And you start making up stories why you're not good, why you should have done this, why that was scary. But if you stay engaged and have good energy, very quickly you find you're back in control, right? So that act of engagement actually will make you feel much better. So next time, like you or the listener gets rejected, just don't run and try to stay engaged. Don't try to force it like this, but smile, relaxed, and explain myself and try to make it happen. You'll feel a lot better that way.
Okay, so what were some of the other rejection experiments that stick out in your mind?
The day 3 was the most crazy one. And that's where the whole thing turned on its head. I went to a Krispy Kreme donut shop and asked them to make me donuts that looked like Olympic rings. It's Olympic year. Just came up with this idea. I was like, there's no way they're going to do this. I'm like going in and ask them and make a joke. I'll get rejected. And then they stay firm, negotiate a little bit. Then I leave, right? That was my script that I had played in my mind.
Okay.
What ended up happening was completely different than I thought. The donut maker, her name is Jackie. She took my request so seriously. She was like, okay, what does the color look like? How do we make this? If we link the donuts this way, we'll get stuck. But if we can make it that way, she was like really thinking about it. I was like, man, what's going on? You should say no and just let me go. But 15 minutes later, she came up with a box of donuts that looked like Olympic rings. And she gave it to me for free. She's like, this is my treat. And I just couldn't believe it. My mind was blown. By the way, I recommend anyone to go on YouTube and search this video. You can search Olympic donuts. You'll see this video. It's really funny. But the thing is, when I was walking out of the donut shop, I just had tears in my eyes because, one, I couldn't believe the customer service or human kindness this woman, Jackie, showed me. But also, on the other hand, I was like, I thought there's no way I would get a yes. How many donut moments have I missed in my life just because I thought there's no way I would get it? You know,
Right.
if we can just ask and someone would say yes to me like this, what else will people say yes to? So that's where the whole experiment turned on its head. That's where it got really fun.
Okay, so after this Olympic donut challenge, which by the way I love and now makes me crave Krispy Kreme, and I might need to go there after this interview, how did that change what you asked for and where you sought rejection?
So before I started, my goal was I want to get rejected. I'm shooting for a no, right? That's the rule of the game, right? You get a no, then you move, right? Toughen yourself up. But now I'm like, I don't care about yes or no. I just want to ask.
So the asking becomes the thing instead of the rejection being the focus.
Exactly. So I needed to focus on presenting myself well, speak well, and be confident, smile, and make sure the other person is at ease. That's my goal now. If I do that, sometimes I get yes. I get a lot more yeses, by the way, when I did that. But sometimes I get yes, sometimes I get no. I didn't care. I became very attached to my process rather than the outcome. But when I relaxed and started just asking, it became much better for me.
I just want to underline something Jiang said because I'm still trying to wrap my own head around it. Hearing no does not have to be a gut punch. In fact, you can actually feel okay and even good in the face of rejection. It's all about prioritizing the process and not the outcome. Getting a no will always be disappointing, but it doesn't have to be devastating. When we approach any ask by smiling, calmly explaining ourselves, thinking about the other person, and having fun, we won't leave any negotiation table empty-handed because we'll still have a positive connection and some intel under our belts to show for it. Out of the 100 experiments Jiang did, several rose to the top as being positive experiences, but one stood out from the rest.
My favorite was one day I went to the campus of UT Austin and started knocking on professors' doors and just asked them if I can teach their class. So, but there's a reason for this. This is why it's my favorite. I come from a family of teachers, like a whole 5 generations of teachers.
Okay, here we go.
And my grandma has always told me that, yeah, you can be whatever you want, but if you're great, you're a teacher. And how's that for, whatever I want.
That's pretty subtle. Thanks.
It's pretty subtle, yeah. But the thing is, I didn't want to be a teacher. I want to be Bill Gates. But that 100 days, I felt I could use that as an excuse to do whatever I wanted and to pursue all my dreams. One of my dreams is to teach a college class. I always thought that to teach college class, I had to accomplish a boatload of stuff. I'd be on the cover of a magazine. I had to get my PhD or whatever, right? But that day, I just asked. And by the way, I didn't go in blind, right? I got my iPad, I loaded my lecture, and I was like, this is what I want to teach. And the professor was like, that's interesting. We might be able to use that. So the communication professor said yes to me. And a couple months later, I was giving a guest lecture to his students. And when I finished, they gave me applause, right? And
Wow.
I walked out of there with misty eyes because I felt my grandmother was there with me that day.
Oh.
I felt I would fulfill my family legacy, so that was my favorite rejection attempt.
They're also unusual and they have surprising outcomes.
Yeah.
It wasn't what you thought going in.
Yeah.
It must have changed your mind about how you saw rejection. What are some of the things that you learned about yourself through this experiment?
Yeah, there's so much fear in a person's mind that just limits their horizon, limits how far they can reach. A lot of times, if you remove these mental blocks from your own mind, you can perform much better. And also, when you get rejected, what kind of story are you telling yourself? If your story you tell yourself is, I'm not good enough, this hurts, I shouldn't try this anymore, then the damage is way more than the initial rejection. But you change the story you tell yourself. You say to yourself, hey, this is the start of a journey, and I learned something about the other person, that this request will probably take 10 rejections. I'm 1 out of 10, and then you keep going. So you change your stories. But also, I just learned how much room there is after a rejection. I learned that when you get rejected, you can say different things. You can ask why. You can ask for something else. There's just so many things you can do after rejection to leave yourself room to turn the no into a yes. But often we don't. We give up. Those are the things I
And
learned.
it's not the end of the story. And maybe before you would have thought that it was the end of the story, rejection. And you are telling me the opposite, that actually there's a lot that can happen after that.
Exactly, exactly. And also, we think rejection is about us, right? As it turned out, rejection says as much, if not more, about that person. It takes
It
two to
does,
dance.
doesn't it?
Yeah, and it says everything about that person's state of mind, or maybe what happened to him or her the night before, or maybe it's a lifelong prejudice. Who knows? And so we all think it's about us, but it actually says a lot about that person.
I want to repeat this idea again for myself as much as anyone else. Rejection says more about the other person than it does about us. We tend to make every no a story where we're the main character and the only character. For example, we may tell ourselves this story. We got to know because we weren't good enough. We got to know because we didn't deserve it. We got to know because we're failures. But that's like looking at the page with a warped lens. So much of what happens is about the other person doing the rejecting. Maybe they need something else. Maybe they're having a hard day. Maybe they don't have the time or money to participate. Maybe they are silently struggling with mental health. Maybe they had someone else in mind before you even showed up. Most likely, there are always things at play behind the no. And as I like to say, that's none of your business. What is your business is to leave the interaction better than you found it, with kindness and care and confidence. Learn what you can from the interaction and just keep trying. I know it's hard not to take rejection personally. Jia says that there are some deeply ingrained reasons for that.
So I think it's probably a little biological, right? The people throughout history who survive, whether that's hunting and gathering, the people who succeed, a lot of times we feel we need to get along with other people. If we're by ourselves, that's pretty dangerous, you know. But if we're in a tribe, we're in a group, we feel strong. But by being in the tribe, to not get rejected, you shouldn't step out of the line. You shouldn't do anything too crazy.
Yeah, you got to
be
fit in.
Like, yeah, fit in. In fact, the people who are by yourself are probably the people who don't survive. So you don't want to step out of line. But that idea is deeply ingrained in both our psychology and biology. But the thing is, in the modern life, world-changing ideas and events are based off rejection. The more your idea impacts other people, the more rejection you'll get. So that fear of rejection went from a survival tool to kind of a liability in a way. Most people want to find the path of least resistance, and they end up having pretty mediocre lives. The people who actually are able to make a big change in the world, in themselves, are the people who are willing to confront rejection.
Yeah. Well, that leads me kind of to my next question. I'm wondering what this project taught you about human nature in general or about generosity.
The world is way more generous than I thought.
Really? You really think that?
Yeah, I do. I do.
Wow.
So
Okay.
often we see the world in the lens of media, right? And the thing is, in social media, these things don't get spread without some sort of conflict. There has to be drama. That's how they get people's emotions involved. But the thing about real life is people are way more generous and people want to help you if you present it the right way. If you show them that, hey, you're looking for help, you know, it's actually helpful that they help us and you're not a threat, you're kind. And then if you're kind, if you bring the right energy, they'll most likely return energy. In these 100 days, people ask me, which rejection feels the worst? And honestly, I didn't have any bad feelings, even in rejections, because I was very relaxed and happy. And people just feel that energy. If you're kind to them, they're kind to you back.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I think a rejection is a big thing that keeps us from doing a lot of things that we really want to do. I'm wondering if someone is listening and they're thinking, I am terrified of rejection, like hearing or watching your experience may cause them to have some inner emotional turmoil. Where could they start that maybe isn't as dramatic as the way that you did?
A couple things. One is you can start with an ask, right? Maybe at the ice cream shop, right? So you're buying ice cream. You can be like, hey, can I get an extra scoop? Or can I get a 15% discount, like good guy discount? You know, sometimes you get rejected, sometimes you get yes, sometimes you get no, but make it a little bit uncomfortable, a little bit, not too much,
Yeah.
just tiny bit. So that's where you start, right? And also let's have this mindset. So the best way to do something that's hard is to think about how you can have fun throughout the process. If you can focus on like, I'm gonna crack a joke, or I'm gonna just make the other person smile, or I'm gonna make myself happy, right? You focus on that part, then the hard things become easy. So
Yeah. I'm an actress. And so, like, in doing a scene and doing improv and saying something and risking saying something dumb, right?
yeah,
I always think it may be really uncomfortable in that moment, but later it might be a good story, right? Like, it might be funny telling it later,
yeah,
even if it isn't in the moment.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So it's either a great story in the moment or a great story later, right?
Yes.
We think life is composed of a series of transactions and goals, but life in reality is a pursuit. It's a pursuit that's composed of moments and highlights.
Yeah.
If you can turn these everyday encounters into highlights, even though they're rejections, even though there are things that didn't feel good in the moment, but if you lean into them and create stories out of them, those things become highlights. Those things become
Yeah.
like things you remember.
They do.
So,
Yeah. And living life that you remember it.
yeah, but you can only make good stories by
Yeah.
getting a little bit uncomfortable, by doing things that's a little bit extraordinary.
I love that. I'm thinking about our kids as we send them off into the world and what we teach them about rejection. Life will present enough rejection, I think. But are there beneficial ways that we can prepare our teens, our young adults better for rejection than we're doing now?
Yeah, that's what I'm doing with my kids now is every time I say no to them, I feel I have to say no to them a lot. But every time I say no to them, I don't want them to give up. I want them to be
No.
like, okay, come back with a different proposal. Learn
Mhm.
why I said no and negotiate with me, which is a good thing, which is a good,
Right. Yeah. It's a great skill.
it's a great skill,
Yeah.
and don't just go out and cry and be like, no, I hate you.
Well, now what? I'll never ask for anything again. Yeah.
No, yeah. But learn, I did this rejection therapy thing when my first son was born. And throughout his life, I'm trying to build this into him, saying, hey, negotiate with me. So, and I feel like he's doing a good job because often he's like, okay, and he will make a pitch and I say no, and then he doesn't give up, but he
Yeah.
doesn't do it in an emotional way. He's like, okay, what about this? How about if I could make this happen? He started just removing the objections I had
Uh-huh.
trying to solve problems. I'm like, man, good for you, man.
Yeah. What a great skill to give
Yeah.
your kids to go off into the world with.
Yeah, absolutely. And when they become a teenager, this is where you can give them guidance, how to feel easy, how to have fun, how to lean into every moment, how to lean into each conversation, into each endeavor. And every rejection you get, you can think about this one of two ways. One is you didn't get what you want. Another is this is the opportunity for you to actually hone your skills to see what changes you can
I
make.
like that.
That's where the real learning is.
A quick note to my parenting self. Emotionally resilient children are kids who know how to handle rejection. Now, that doesn't mean they have stiff upper lips and accept no like champs. It means giving them multiple chances to make their pitch and even encouraging it. That's a tad different than the because I said so approach that I may or may not have used. But talk about a great lesson in negotiation and critical thinking and understanding your audience and honing conversation skills. And I'm always such a sucker for anyone who can make any experience into a great story, especially when it's my kids. Now, when it comes to crafting our own stories about rejection, Ja offered this advice.
So instead of saying, this is not for me, instead of saying, man, I'm not good enough, or, well, that sucked, right? That's a natural reaction, right?
Oh, yeah.
You lean to the opposite side. It's like, okay, how can I turn this into a good story?
Yeah.
How can I turn this around? How can I be epic? So think about that.
Think about that, guys. How can I be epic? I do like that. It starts a great conversation,
It
doesn't
is.
it? So tell me how your life has changed after this experiment for 100 days of rejection.
So I'll tell you the short term and long term, okay? So the
Okay.
short term was my whole life changed. All of a sudden, I become internet famous. People start inviting me to give talks at their companies to teach people about rejection. And that where I discovered a talent I didn't know I had, which was public speaking. Over the years, I spoke over 500 different events. I learned that I can be really good at public speaking. That's a talent I didn't know I had. I wrote a book called Rejection Proof. It's actually still being used by people in sales and in career development. But after the book, I was like, I was still looking for, I'm like, okay, good. I have this platform. Let me go back to this Bill Gates chase. I still want to
Right.
build this big company.
This is still what I want. Yeah.
This is still what I want. But then the pandemic hit, right? I mean, to be honest, I felt a little bit depressed, and also
Yeah.
that was a bad year when it comes to our society. You see a lot of negative news just everywhere.
And I imagine that it must have slowed down that sort of momentum that you were feeling anyway in life.
Absolutely, absolutely. And to feel better, I started writing. I started a new blog and writing about just different things. And I felt better. I just felt like when I'm writing, I feel good. When I finished writing, I went back to my company and facing everything about the company again. I just felt this reluctance. I felt this kind of almost saying goodbye to your loved one. And then I have this epiphany. And I was like, why do I want to go down this Bill Gates route? Why can't I just be a writer? I mean, if I like
Why
writing,
can't dreams change, right?
exactly. So why can't I just change my dream to something that's out of who I am rather than who I want to be? So I started writing books, and that whole mindset change made me so much happier.
Oh, wow. Congratulations.
Thank you. The thing is, I'm still as ambitious, but I'm really happy. That's the part where when you find your relationship with the world or the relationship with the universe, you find out what you're meant to do. And it's very simple. You just focus on that, right? So there's this pretty famous book called Ikigai. And it's talking about the Japanese idea of what you love, what you're good at, and what people will pay you for, and what's good for the world, right? If you find that intersection of these four circles, then you have achieved this Ikigai, which means meaning. So I feel like I have achieved that, and life is good.
What started as heartbreaking rejection and a sense of failure for Jia has turned into a story where he now uses words like achievement and undiscovered talent and happy. Before I interviewed Jia, I might have been tempted to think, wow, great ending to a rough beginning. I guess he got lucky. But that's what rejection wants you to think, that it holds all the cards and you get what you're dealt. But that's not true at all. Jia didn't get lucky. When he faced rejection, he got curious. He got prepared. He got conversational. He got friendly. And he got bold. What he didn't do is make rejection about him or let it stop him from trying. In fact, my favorite part of this whole story is that when that investor turned him down all those years ago in Austin, Texas, it not only helped Jia to get better at being told no, but in the process of rejection, he was able to eventually say yes to the career he was meant for all along. Rejection may be the end of one story, one opportunity, one casting call, but it may also be the beginning of another one, a better one, an epic one. And if that doesn't deserve an Olympic Krispy Kreme donut, then I don't know what does.
The Lisa Show is a production of BYU Radio, hosted by Lisa Valentine Clark. This episode was produced by Erica Price, with help from Becca Hurley-Lung and Blake Morris, with post-production by Gracie Davis. A special thanks to today's guest, Jiang. Links to his books and his website will be in the show notes. Don't miss out on two other amazing podcasts from the Lisa Show family, The Council of Moms and Proofread, a new book review podcast to help you read more of what you love. You can find The Council of Moms and Proofread on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. As always, thanks for your messages. We read them all, and thanks for listening.
Check out Take a Leap, a brand new BYU Radio original podcast. Created entirely by BYU students, this interfaith podcast is designed for young adults navigating faith in today's world. Choosing faith isn't always easy, but Take a Leap brings you real stories from young people who weave faith into their everyday lives. Join Take a Leap as they explore the incredible ways young people from different faiths are making a difference in their communities. Tune in on the BYU Radio app or wherever you get your podcasts.